Today, let's look at a pair of remakes that, according to personal tastes, might have been remade a bit too soon. One was more successful than the other, evolving and making interesting changes, but both are pretty effective films nevertheless. This is M.L. Miller Fright's Best in Horror Countdown 2022 through 2023, counting down the best in horror within the window of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023.
Number 15.
Final Cut, aka Z, aka COUPEZ, was released on July 14th, 2023. It's available on demand from Kino Lorber Films. Is directed by Michel Hazanavicius and written by Michel Hazanavicius, Shin'ichirô Ueda, and Ryoichi Wada. 4 years ago, a film called One Cut of the Dead was released from Japan, and though many haven't seen it, it still became quite the cult hit for those in the know, kind of like the people like you who check out my reviews. Enough said. It's a film that, if you saw it, you wanted others to see it and experience this celebration of horror and filmmaking so you can watch the film work its magic on someone else as it did you. I honestly don't know anyone who hasn't seen it that doesn't love it. When word got out that the remake was in the works, I groaned. Once again, a great concept is going to go through the stale Americanized rehash for those who don't like to read their movies and can't take international films. But instead of being translated into English, the remake of One Cut of the Dead turned out to be a remake done by a French filmmaker named Michel Hazanavicius, who cast the film with French actors speaking French. So screw you, guys who can't stand foreign films. This is another version of One Cut of the Dead, retitled Final Cut. But surely the French wouldn't be able to capture the essence of One Cut of the Dead's bold and refreshing love of cinema all over again, right? Wrong. Final Cut follows pretty much the same storyline and storytelling format as the original. It opens with a 30-minute long single-take movie about a group of filmmakers making a zombie movie who actually bumble their way into evoking a curse that resurrects real zombies. After that comes a flashback where we are made privy to the chaos leading up to the filming of the movie entitled Z, or COUPEZ. Presented as an idea brought from Japan to France for a remake, the last part of the film shows the behind-the-scenes mayhem that goes into making the 30-minute long one-take work, and it's pure cinematic gold. While there are parts that don't work well, other parts of Final Cut work even better as seen through a French lens. Added to the film is a bit more slapstick and irreverent humor. One Cut of the Dead was goofy enough, but there's a French style of humor that makes the whole thing even funnier, in my opinion. In the final portion of the film, where all of the weirdness we saw in the first segment is explained, the antics of the director and his crew reach new levels of buffoonery and equal parts luck and genius in order to make the whole thing work. One thing I think One Cut of the Dead did well was the family aspect. There was a wholesomeness to the way the Japanese family interacted with one another that the French version attempts but doesn't quite achieve. The French version is a bit more sarcastic in that way. That said, I think the final moments of Final Cut hit me harder on an emotional level, and I was surprised at how one little beat made the tears fall. I understand that comparing the two films isn't really fair to either, and honestly, a double feature of One Cut of the Dead and Final Cut would make for some very interesting watching, as both films are relatively the same, but different enough to entertain on their own. As is, I'd love to see other countries take a whack at remaking this film, adding their own regional nuances as Final Cut does. Either way, Final Cut is a fantastic remake of an equally fantastic movie. There are not many films that are able to capture the drive man has to create art and the lengths he or she will go to achieve it. Final Cut and the original One Cut of the Dead do just that. It celebrates what we cinephiles love about horror and cinema and supports the fact that there are movies out there that simply feel magical. Last Shift was towards the top of my countdown when it was released in 2016, but I just felt that MALUM wasn't different enough to make it necessary for a remake. MALUM was released on March 31st, 2023. It's available on demand from Welcome Villain. It's directed by Anthony DiBlasi and written by Anthony DiBlasi and Scott Poyle. After her police officer father busts a cult leader and ends up going on a shooting rampage through a police station, rookie police officer Jessica Lauren, played by Jessica Sula, volunteers to be assigned to the very police station her father used to work at and the place where he went on his rampage. The station is set to be shut down soon, leaving her alone in the dark halls. But when phone calls from cult members begin coming in and strange phenomena begin occurring, Jessica realizes that the cult her father supposedly shut down has power far beyond the grave, and it's slowly seeping back into the station. To read the description of MALUM, one might think that there really isn't a lot different from the plot of Last Shift, and in many ways that's a correct assumption. But what Anthony DiBlasi and his co-writer Scott Poyle have done is exactly what Sam Raimi did when he basically told the same story again with Evil Dead 2 after it was told a few years before in Evil Dead. What Raimi and DiBlasi both do is tell their respective stories, improve on those stories, and then expand the parameters of those stories outside of what was told before. It's a bold move because I feel a lot more people have seen Last Shift because of its appearance on Netflix and just the larger availability of smaller films these days to the masses compared to the amount of folks who caught Evil Dead 2 on video when only a short number of those folks caught the original in drive-ins before that film was released. That said, I feel like while Last Shift was filled with tension and terrifying imagery, DiBlasi has honed his talent much more in this newer version. The jump scenes are crisper, the terrifying scenes more disturbing, and the edge is very much sharper in MALUM. It simply feels like an eviler film, more in touch with the depths of darkness DiBlasi was going for in Last Shift. You can also tell it's also got a slightly bigger budget. In my original review of Last Shift, I compared it to Assault on Precinct 13 by way of rec, and that comparison stands with MALUM. The setting of MALUM is a character of its own, a living, breathing nightmare space. The dark hallways and openings and closing doorways are more detailed here, with molded floors and dilapidated ceilings. There are a few new factors that are creepy as all get out, like a snorting pig that shows up outside of the precinct, and the detailed ghostly monstrosities who were once human cultists but now seem to be transformed into toothy, hooded demons. As this story goes on, the setting and details get darker and danker to the point where the film reminded me a lot of the harrowing hospital scene in Jacob's Ladder. It was that intense and disturbing. While I really liked the Jessica from the original, played by Juliana Harkavy, and I feel it would have been fun to see her again in this role, Jessica Sula is a great replacement. She is wide-eyed and energetic to take this job, reciting the code of the police officers as her mantra, and eager to uncover the reasons why her father flipped out as he did. She's also tough in the face of adversity, as shown in a few scenes where other cops bully her because she's a rookie. Still, when Jessica encounters the horrors of the precinct's past and tortured afterlife, she's understandably rattled. While one can understand Jessica's actions, some of which may put her in more trouble, we understand why she might step outside of the precinct for a moment or let someone into the precinct to distract her from the growing strange phenomena she's experiencing inside. This is where the protagonist descends into madness, but every step of the way feels justified and logical in its own lunatic sense. Seeing MALUM makes me want to watch Last Shift again. Both are very similar, both have a lot of the same scenes. There are scenes I feel resonated more in Last Shift, but then again, there are some that MALUM does better with a bigger budget. MALUM takes the emotional connection between Jessica, her father, the case, and the precinct itself to a deeper and more resonant level. It widens the lore, and it gives a lot more information about the cult and who or what it was devoted for. I also feel MALUM sticks the landing better than the more questionable ending of Last Shift, and is a more sensible movie because of it. I'm looking forward to where DiBlasi is going now that he has reestablished the depravity and despair of MALUM and his minions. Both Last Shift and his new MALUM have cemented the fact that DiBlasi has a firm grip on what can scare you. Not enough horror movies are made by people with this particular talent these days. As always, feel free to agree, disagree, or how about you play along at home and give me your own picks for your favorite horror movies. It's October, so let's talk horror. Come back tomorrow for the next level in the Best in Horror Countdown. Be sure to hit all of those pertinent bells and whistles down below, and you'll never miss a post. Happy Halloween, folks.